people shit on Oracle all the time. And, the culture, whatever, I don't know what it's like now. But I can tell you, if you're looking to learn sales, I don't know if there's a better place for you to go than to go to Oracle.
Yeah,
I think that was the first time I was truly intimidated by an interview process because, one, you're already intimidated because it's Google.
Yeah.
Right? We're all brainwashed already to think, like, you're here. So, like, lucky you.
I'm Chris Bussing. Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people create lives of freedom and impact through success in tech sales and the pursuit of self-development. And it's brought to you by Tech Sales Accelerator. Launch your six-figure tech sales career in the next 12 weeks. Our guest today is someone who is near and dear to my heart. This is a special podcast. We've got James Carlson, my OG mentor at Google Cloud, someone who has become a personal friend and continues to be an inspiration. This guy went from high school dropout to working at Google Cloud. Then he joined GrubHub, where he closed a $27 million deal, one of the biggest the organization had ever seen. He went on to build an SDR organization, and he has coached up and managed some of the top performers at GrubHub and really is the best leader at the organization. In this conversation, you're going to learn from a real-world, proven seller that has an amazing underdog story that will inspire anyone who feels that they don't have a pedigree, that anything is possible. I can succeed in tech sales, and I can achieve at the level that James did, which is closing over $612 million in 12 years. Isn't that right, James? Is that the total?
Yeah, that's insane.
So, guys, here's my ask of you. Make sure to pay close attention. Take notes on this conversation and translate what you learn into action to produce your own tech sales career success, and celebrate with us in the comments. Make sure to connect with James on LinkedIn and myself as well. With that, let's get into it. James, so good to have you, man. How's your day been today?
That's been great. It's Thursday.
Yeah, Thirsty Thursday.
My lungs are filled with air. What can you complain about?
Nothing to complain about, man.
No.
So let's get into this thing.
Okay.
Tell us about your journey from high school dropout to Google. This is a broad question, and it's going to be a journey, but let's roll with it.
Yeah. Okay, so moved from California to Houston as a senior. Texas requires you to have a specific course, I believe maybe two. Texas history is one. And something happened with credits to where I ended up being a junior instead of a senior when I transferred. Prior to that, I was already working in the restaurant business, and I was like, I knew school wasn't for me. And so I didn't want to invest my time. At this age, I learned very early on that I valued my time over a lot more like other things in life. Like time has always been one of the more valuable aspects of life. Like money's super important. People value money, but like I'll value time over money any day of the week. Because I know what I'm capable within that time.
Ooh,
right?
I love this.
And so I told my parents, like, one, you moved me from California to Houston my senior year. This is not fun. Like, what a culture shock this is. Two, I hate school already. I already knew it. I hated it before. But at the time in
Real
California,
talk.
I had friends, right? My life, like childhood friends that, I've established for 16 years being there. Coming here, I had nobody. So it was like, what was I doing it for? There was no enjoyment, no passion. There was no friendships, no relationships. Could I have started over and redid all that? Sure. But within a year or 2 years, like, what would I have gained? And I wanted to just get ready to work. That was it. I just knew, like, I'm going to just outwork whatever situation I get. I get it. Teachers told me you're going to make $35,000 the rest of your life. You're likely not to be successful. The societal checkbox we're all told we need to follow, right? Because we're all put in a box. And I knew at that moment, like, that's just not the box you can put me in. And so went from that to restaurants. I met my wife early. I was 20. when I met her. She had a son that was 2.5. I then knew that I had to be better for them. And so really started to work, figure out my career, got heavy into restaurants, managing restaurants, district manager, whatever it may be, at a couple restaurants in Houston. Had my daughter at 21. So 2 kids, 21. Nathan was 3, technically my stepson, but not really. Then my daughter, so it's like now more motivation. Where do I go? What do I do? Just grind away in the restaurant business to make as much money as possible. Pregnant with my 3rd child, Parker. And, I'm about 8 years in the restaurant business. At that point, realized like I'm working 90 hours a week. The financial part's cool, but like I'm not also like the other part that's super important. My dad left me. He chose his addiction over me. And, addiction you don't actually end up choosing, but that's what it felt like at that time. So I knew I had to be a dad. Not just financially a provider, but I need to be the best dad I could be.
Emotionally available and present.
And at 21, you think you know what that looks like, but you don't until you go through it. Just like you think you know what a husband looks like until you actually are one, right? You're not just a provider, you're so much more. But you got to learn that as you go through your life. Moved to Austin from Houston. Started at a tech startup. Everybody has always told me my whole life, sales, either lawyer or sales, right? Well, lawyers can't really be a high school dropout and be a lawyer.
Yeah. But you can make as much as lawyers or more in sales and don't need the degree. So that's what's beautiful.
Key. And then I just knew like myself, right? Like I know what I'm capable of. And so I took a job at a startup VAR. So they were selling hardware, and then also ended up being a managed service company about 3 months in. Sold that first week. Large sale to Round Rock ISD, then a hospital 2 weeks later, and then it just kind of all trickled down. Boom. It was like, all right, I know what this looks like. And now at this time, it was not a base. It was all commission.
Wow.
Which coming from a pretty good salary in the restaurant industry, it was a super risk. I mean, it was just a huge risk. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I could do it. I just needed to figure it out. And so that's one thing I like, is figuring things out.
So I have to ask, like, clearly you're the person who bets on yourself. And I think we all want to be that person who has that self-confidence that I can do this, I can figure it out. It doesn't matter what situation you put yourself in. Where did that come from? Was it just innate, or like, it seems like you were almost born with it?
I think I don't think it was always there. I think there were a lot of times where it was false, like a false confidence, but like I had no other choice but to believe in myself because of the situation I put myself in, right? By not graduating high school and going to college, I kind of left myself in a position where you have to figure it out. So like you have to bet on yourself.
And with your family too, you raised your necessity. Like you had kids counting on you and a wife.
And super young.
You had to grow up real quick.
Well, I had to grow up while parenting. So like I wasn't even a parent. I was still a child while parenting, and then also trying to find a way to provide. And so that itself is tough, because emotionally and my mature level, like I'm not even close to where I need to be, especially me personally. Like I just know myself enough to know like I was not who I needed to be, but I knew I could at least provide. And then I think also the other aspect is like my dad leaving me, even though he's called my stepdad, but he's raised me since I was 2.5. He's my father. But in these terms, it would be stepdad. Even though he raised me, there's still that aspect of, and I didn't realize this till I was older, of like thinking about being left and not chosen by your father, right? And I think for me, I've always used that as like this motivation, this chip of like, okay, you left me, so like I'm going to use that to continue to show you like what you missed out on. Later on down the road, I figure out like kind of what actually happened and all that other stuff. But that was the motivation.
And it served a purpose.
It did serve the purpose.
To motivate you.
100%.
Yeah. So one question I have is the term VAR. I'd like you to dumb it down for the audience, because we started to get in your tech sales journey in your first role, but people out there might not know what a VAR is and managed services. I certainly do. So can you describe to them like what you were selling, And then also, I'll ask you some questions about how you even got that first role, because a lot of people out there are like, how do I get my first foot in the door? So first off, what were you selling? Like, what's a VAR? What were you?
Yeah, I was selling hardware, right?
Hardware.
But not well, I was selling servers, and desktops and printers, right? So that's how it started. Then managed services, which, you know, for anybody that's in the business, you know what that is. But for anybody trying to get in it, you're managing the IT infrastructure for a company. And so we were selling that service, dude. And you know, it's hilarious. I didn't know anything about tech, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm coming from, you know, restaurants, and like I knew micros and like POS, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it ended.
Point of sale, like in a
Right.
Starbucks or a
100% Toast now,
checkout.
right?
Yeah.
So I knew that, but I didn't know anything else about this, you know, and I didn't go to college. So like I didn't learn that stuff. And so it was really, and I've never been, and this is going to sound so awful, but it's the truth if we're going to be authentic. I've never been a learner in the sense of like things I'm not passionate about, I don't want to learn. So I didn't want to learn about the desktops, the printers, the features and functionalities within that and the servers. What I wanted to do was talk to the people, get them to buy into me. We'll let the rest of that take care of whatever it may be, right?
Hey, by the way, we're going to talk about some stories from our Google days when we went in an on-site with some C-levels, and you were there riding alongside me, and thank God you were there to save the meeting. And so a little cliffhanger or teaser for the audience. But we're going to get into your sales style. I think it's like so authentic and real.
Yeah.
And so that's just more of a teaser. But clearly, you're like, one thing I'm getting is you're like, the tech will take care of itself, but I got to get these customers to buy into me and build that connection and just keep it real. The rest will flow.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and look, and I remember our first, I wouldn't say conflict, but I remember our first like friction point as a mentor and mentee was like your preparation. You were so much like, it was all laid out, every aspect.
I am an analytical brain. And I do all this research.
And I'm the opposite, but not just the opposite, the extreme opposite.
Yeah.
I know the company name, I know what they do, and I know the title.
So you know some stuff,
Let me
but
go
that's
in there.
it.
But I mean, you like how much research? Like I did that during prospecting, so therefore I figured that out, and then I didn't need to learn anything else.
Okay,
until we got to discovery.
So real quick, let's get into the benefits of the really like flowing approach where you're not over analyzing, because I actually now realize, and I learned through you, there are tremendous benefits of not over preparing. So what are the benefits of that style?
I think, you know, it's going to be unique to each individual, right? Like, and getting in, like being in sales leadership now, like I'm seeing that, you know, obviously I'm learning that that's not always going to work, and like I can't force my style upon my team and who I manage. So therefore I got to learn from them, and I do that.
Yeah.
But I think for like the organic, just be yourself, go figure it out and flow, you're really leaning on your personality and who you are, right? So you got to be able to build rapport immediately. That's the key. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to continue that next
Okay,
step.
real quick, what's a tip or two on how you build rapport?
Tip or two. Yeah, I would say just being authentically yourself in a way where like people can see it, right? Because people can also see when you're not. So when you're not, it makes them feel like they can't be. But when you are, people tend to believe that they can also be, which kind of starts to bring down their walls and be able to connect at a quicker pace. Now, there's been so many times where that doesn't work for me, right? And so I'm pivoting. But I think organically, I'm always ready to pivot. And so that, to go back to like preparation,
Yeah.
you can't prepare for every situation. And that's kind of, I've always been so quick with the thinking that like I just could naturally pivot.
You do have good instincts, by the way. I'm asking like analytical questions about, what are tips to be organic? But the reality is part of it is intuitive and natural, and you are present and you pivot and feel it out. And that is what I see to be a benefit of flowing, is you are more nimble and adaptable, because you can never predict how another human being's going to show up. They might be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a CTO that I've known for 4 years that was a customer of mine at Google Cloud that I brought over to Bespin.
Yeah.
And he yelled at me for the first time in 4 years. And I don't take it personal,
Sure.
man. I met his family. But it was just unexpected. And I think he was in just like a really bad mood. And I think he said, he didn't tell me, but something personal is going on beyond work.
100%.
And so it's just an example, like you don't know if an executive you're about to meet has has personal things going on. They're not even present. They're pissed. Like, you have to be ready to adapt it. Like, how are you going to deal with that in the moment? No amount of preparation on their business is going to prepare you to deal with that.
No, but and then on top of that, like, just every human's different. So like I always encourage anybody to, pick up on body language, tone, mannerisms. Those are all keys that you can get when you walk in the door for an on-site, right? You can pick that up right when you walk in. You're gonna be able to read their face and be like, whew, okay, so joking's probably out today. We're straight to the point.
Yes.
Let's save the time. We need to get in and out of this. 15 minutes. This was a 45-minute on-site. Not today. Today it's 15 minutes. I can tell he's got a lot going on. It might be an internal fire. It might be something personal. I don't know.
Empathy.
But at the end of the day, I know that the time I have needs to be shortened so that he can get back to what he needs to. And then I can come back and revisit that and then say like, hey, looked like there's a lot going on. And obviously you're probably going to learn that during the meeting, right? That something's going on. And then you're now able to personally touch on that when you send the recap email or whatever it may be. Hey, I know we have 45 minutes. I could see a lot was going on today. It made a lot of sense for me to be able to just come in and kind of get what we needed to be able to move to the next step and make sure that you're set up. But I really wanted you to be able to focus on what you were working on that day because I could see it was something important. Now
that's smooth, baby. I love that.
But like,
and it's
just natural.
It's natural, and it's conversational. I like your conversational style because, dude, one of the biggest things that turns prospects off that could become future customers is when you sound scripted. It could be on a cold call. It could be a discovery call. It could be an in-person on-site.
Yeah.
If you sound canned and you're not real, so that like the way you flowed there was great, and you're getting to follow up and show empathy, like, hey, I want what's best for you, and I've got your best interest in mind. So, dude, is there anything else you would add in terms of like going back to your story, getting into the MSP space or that first role? In terms of how you got that first foot in the door? Because that was your first role in tech. Did you have a connection?
No.
Did you shoot your shot?
Ran into somebody, so daughter's friend's dad was running this. His partner was like in Oregon. Was talking to him about what I was doing and how I was looking to get out. At that time, I was thinking real estate would probably be the best way for me to go and figure out sales. And he's like, well, I can't pay you, but, if you come and sell, I'll pay you if you close deals. I was like, all right, well, I can get another restaurant job within like 2 weeks because, like, where I'm at now in my sales journey, I believe I'm in the top 10% of the world in salespeople. At that time in the restaurant industry, I was in the top 10% of what I could do then. So I knew I could find another job to fall back on. So it was like easy for me to be able to say, all right, let me take that risk. A lot of times, like those smaller VARs or smaller managed service companies and stuff like that, like I don't know how many there are nowadays. It obviously bigger companies, but there are going to always be some locally. So I think a lot of times when people are trying to get into tech, they think, okay, let me go to the Oracles, Googles, Facebooks, all this. Like, let me start there. But like at the end of the day, like you just need the tech experience and the sales experience.
Yeah.
So like just go wherever. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you're only selling, Dell desktops, but you're selling and you're selling tech. Now, if you can sell that, you're probably going to be able to sell whatever else that next step is, right? If you can sell one thing, you can sell the next thing.
Hey, one quick thing too is if you can sell crappy tech, you definitely can sell Google Cloud or Oracle or the big names.
100%.
So in fact, that's more impressive if you go to a crappy company and succeed. And so, like you said, just get in somewhere. And you're a natural with sales. It's just clear to me, going back to when I first met you and was able to observe you in action. Clearly, you're able to build rapport and flow with it. I just want to see, is there any other key things that contribute to your success in sales? Like, obviously, I prepare a lot. That helps me, but also it's a double-edged sword. Some people have a really good process around how they approach deals. But, like, are there any other key, like, things that help you succeed and just be successful selling, even across industries, like you're selling in the restaurant space too?
Yeah, don't sell in the restaurant space, but I sell B2Bs, but I don't sell at all now. But
no, you did though, right? You're like you were working in restaurants though.
Oh yeah, but
so that what I meant to say is to me I was like, oh, that's a form of selling.
100%.
But like, so you
and you're right.
So that's what I meant to say is you. I feel like you could sell anything, though,
yes.
is what I meant to say.
I agree.
And so any other universal qualities?
Like, I would say, I think listening. seems to be something that most people like in sales, like especially the younger people in sales, they really want to talk so much. They think that a salesperson, they kind of, salespeople talk. That's like kind of what we're known for, right? The best salespeople are good at talking, and that's true, but they're also really good at listening, and giving the prospect the space to be able to answer and have the conversation where you don't say a lot. Like that first disco, it's not about your product. It's not about what you're selling. It's about like, what are they doing? How can you help? You're not going to probably, most times you're not going to insert how you help right away. You're really going to be listening to use cases. And while that's happening, you're learning where you fit in. So I think listening is one of the bigger keys to being a salesperson, but it's not talked about enough.
It's funny how listening isn't talked about enough. I
know.
don't even know if that's funny, but listening is it's so important. And I just connected with a seller at a cloud provider that's covering the largest account in this whole cloud provider's business. In the whole company, it's a $40 billion company.
Sheesh.
And she covers it. She's the epitome of sales.
Yeah.
And she said the key to selling to executives at $40 billion companies is to shut the fuck up. Excuse my French, but
Makes
we speak
sense.
French here. It's exactly what you're saying. She's like, there are leaders at her organization, at a top cloud provider, that screw things up because they're coming in with value maps, over preparing and trying to talk about all the value they can bring rather than listening and letting the executive talk. So I'm glad I asked you another question on just some universal things that have helped you be successful other than building rapport and flowing. And one of those is clearly listening. And so we will gain more insights as we
Sure.
go through your journey, but I'm going to bring us back to the journey to Google. Everyone wants to hear about Google and how did you get in and your experience, but then I'm excited to talk about GrubHub too. So it's going to be fun. But from this first tech opportunity where you bet on yourself, you had no base, just commission, you made it happen. What happened next? Was Google next, or were there more?
Oracle was next.
Oh, Oracle. Yeah, I forgot we shared that.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, how did you get to Oracle?
That was actually a referral.
Okay.
My uncle, shout out to Christy Tucker. That's not my uncle, but Christy Tucker was a friend of my uncle, and she was at Oracle for a long time, field sales, and my uncle was at HP for so long, and they used to be in a band together. And he was like, "Hey, like my nephew, he's my uncle, but he's like my best friend, is at this small little bar. He's ready for the big leagues. Like, can you get him anything?" And so sent my resume to her. She put it in front of the hiring manager because, as we all know, that's how the process works, right? If you're referred, it's great, it helps, but like, if that resume is handed to the hiring manager, that's the key.
Yes.
That's the key.
I mean,
right?
just to the audience, you never want to cold apply. You want to get referred in. That's the name of the game. And in today's world, you can use LinkedIn. You can reach out. You can create warm connections. Go in person to networking events. So, dude, I think that's a key point. It is get referred in.
But and ask for that person to put you in front of the hiring manager. Don't just ask for the referral. Like,
I see.
Also, like, there's other parts of it. Like, you can get lost in the referral system too.
Okay, can you highlight, like, tactically what that might look like? How you'd frame it to your person in terms of, like, hey, asking to get put in front of the hiring manager?
Well, it's going to vary by situation for sure, right? You're not always going to be able to do it, depending on the person referring you or whatever it may be. But if you have somebody, whether it be like another sales manager or sales director or VP or whatever it may be, if that person ends up being your referral, you're able to just ask them. Just, hey, refer, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Ask them about the process so you know what it looks like. But then also ask, like, would it make sense to also get my resume to the hiring manager just so that she can see it? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of applications sent her way for this position. So
yeah,
and it's like sales in general. Like, just ask the question.
Hey, can
what's
you,
the answer? No.
Yeah, can you I'll maybe send my resume and shoot a ping, just kind of endorsing me?
Yeah, 100%.
That's something
that I've
done
with her. Like,
yeah.
Do you see her or him? If so, like, and if they report to that person, like, and you're going to maybe be, you're applying for a position on the same team, like, bring it up in your one-on-one. Hey, my buddy Chris is looking for a role. He's actually actively looking now. He's at this place currently. He's a top performer.
Exactly.
You know, would it be okay if I sent you his resume? Like,
Yeah.
and those people want. The reality is, those people want to hire the people that you know,
Yeah,
anyways.
exactly.
Because it's not necessarily it's not 100% known, right? But if that person's referring them, they're likely standing by some of their work.
Yeah. So you got referred in. Was the interview process pretty smooth for you, or like, what do you remember about the interview process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was so smooth. No, I don't know if I would say it was smooth. Shout out to Amy Caldwell, one of the best managers I've ever had in my life, and she taught me so much how to lead. And we could talk about her later, but she hired me. That interview process, she took a chance on me because like I was only at that VAR for like, I think almost a year. You know, like a resume is just a piece of paper.
Quick thing, by the way, it's like Oracle will take shots on people.
100%.
That's where I started my career coming out of college. So that's why I do think it's a special place. Some might say, oh, it's a broy culture. There's obviously issues, but like they will take a shot on you, man. And I'm so grateful that I was able to get that experience.
Look, people shit on Oracle all the time. And you know, the culture, whatever, I don't know what it's like now, but I can tell you if you're looking to learn sales, I don't know if there's a better place for you to go than to go to Oracle.
Yeah.
Their shit is in line and they know exactly what they're doing. And if you go in and strip the ego and are willing to learn and be a sponge and be a constant learner on a daily basis, you have a real opportunity to, I mean, you're probably going to make a good career for yourself in sales because Oracle just teaches you it all.
Yeah. And I was trained up in the Sandler sales methodology. Was that when you were with Oracle? Do you remember where it talks about like upfront contracts and the pain funnel?
I remember going through that.
I mean, there's some good things about like having a good agenda going into a meeting, how to diagnose pain, like when like customers aren't going to buy unless there's an actual pain or need you're solving. So to be able to ask probing questions.
Yeah.
To get to the, actually qualify pain. But you just said sometimes. Tell us about the other six.
I mean, there are times where people will buy from you because they just like you.
True.
Like, I remember a Q4 call I had at Oracle where it was, I needed this to hit my number. I knew they had budget. Hey, Todd, I know in Q2 you're going to buy these Spark servers. Can you do me a favor and buy the Spark servers this quarter since you have budget? It would help me out a lot because I'd actually hit my number. Todd said, sure.
So the key is like
it's a relationship.
I do have a former customer that went to a new company, and because we have such a personal relationship, he's trying to find ways to do a deal with me. But you have the relationship there, but you also... It's really cool that you were aware of their budget cycle and that there was budget, and what a good move to ask. Like, I know you have this budget set aside. Can we pull it forward?
Yeah.
So that just showed that you got to know the business you're working with and their approval process, how they, their budget works. And can you explain that concept though? Sometimes like, I used to do a campaign where there's a certain amount of budget approved for a company, and if you get to end of quarter, sometimes there's extra lying around that you spend it or lose it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the company, right? Like every company is going to operate differently, but I mean, I've done this multiple times. If they have the budget left over, if you don't spend it, well, then that ledger shows that like next year when they're building out the budget, it's like, well, you didn't spend all of this,
so you're not going to get as much this year.
And no director of IT is going to want to like lose money because you never know what you're going to need, especially in this situation of selling like infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so use it because why not?
Yeah.
And you already have it. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. And you're going to buy, and that's also the other point. I know you're going to buy in Q2 because we've already talked about it. So it's like, you're going to buy 12. I don't need you to buy 12 now. And you don't have the budget to buy 12. So let's buy 3. And then in February, we'll continue the conversations about what Q2 purchase looks like for the 9.
Yeah. In enterprise sales, it's important to know your customer's business, their budget approval process, their buying cycles clearly.
Sign
you
off,
understood that.
All that.
And no, it's cool to dig into this like real world concept of understanding they get a certain amount of budget approved for an IT director. And if they don't spend it all, they might not get as much next year. So what a logical reason to say, hey, you got some excess budget around, maybe you could put it towards a solution and pull it forward. So yeah, hey, so with Oracle, any key lessons learned or aspects of experience that you want to hit on? Otherwise, we'll go to the next move, and I don't know if it was Google next.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other key, looking back, lessons learned from Oracle, things you want to share from that experience in service of these aspiring sellers?
Yeah, I would say with Oracle, just like I said, keep your head down and go in and learn as much as you can. Ask the questions. Always be flexible in the sense of one, and this is any spot you go to, build your relationships outside of your team and with other sellers and sales managers and directors, because Oracle's so big that there's always another open position. So you might be able to find yourself another one within the company. I always thought that was a key thing. And shout out to Aaron Warshawski. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He was a director at Oracle. Now he's at Common Thread doing his thing. He's just insane. But he's still to this day my mentor. Helps me with so many things. But I never directly reported to him, but we still were able to build a relationship, and we would go for walks and do all these things. And so I would say that that's a big thing. Build your network.
Dude, yes. I have to acknowledge, all opportunities are tied to people.
All of them.
And your network is your greatest opportunity generating asset long term. And I'm not just talking business opportunities, even personal opportunities, friendship. Oracle is such a good place to not just get world-class sales training you'll use your whole career, but amazing connections and a network. Because the Oracle people are going to Google like you did, going on to GrubHub and other top tech places, getting into entrepreneurship, So the network piece is huge.
It's just such a big piece of what you're wanting to build for your life and for your career. So you're there so much, you might as well make the relationships, especially when you were in person, in office, right? So I would say that's a big thing. I think the other thing is, and this is with any other company too, any culture can end up being seen as negative, or there can be negative components or negative employees. Find yourself the one or two that aren't, especially if you're in an office. If you're remote, this is going to definitely be challenging, but you also shouldn't be around too many negative people if you're remote. But find yourself one or two people you can latch onto that do view and think of things the way you do, and don't allow that negativity to crawl into you. I think it's super important for that to be killed off immediately, and just form your own opinions and do your own thing. Because I think when I worked at Oracle, there were so many moments of hey, I'm not in the right territory, all these other things. Definitely a bro territory, or bro culture for sure. But you can still navigate it in the proper manner and not be part of that. And I would say don't be part of that, because you're going to go a lot further if you're not associated with that negativity.
Yeah.
But that's anything in life.
There's problems at any company,
100%.
Including at Google. I got to a point where I ended up
I think it was more at Google.
Yeah, and but it was so great at first, the culture. I meet great friends like you. It's a special place, but I'm, at the end of it, I ran into the reasons to make a leap, and it was the greatest decision to go to my next venture. And so we'll talk about Google next. And I will say that even when I was at Google, people are like, how can I get into Google? To this day, they still ask me how to get into Google. And I think one of the smartest paths is the indirect path that I took, that was go to Oracle, a company that gives you world-class training that Google recruits from, because Google's an engineering company, not an enterprise sales org, but they're trying to become an enterprise sales org. And so they recruit people from Google, and Oracle, excuse me. And I remember when Connor Lind ended up in my LinkedIn inbox reaching out for a Google Cloud role when I was at Oracle. Now, was it the same story for you where Google recruited you because you were at Oracle? That was my experience, but what led to Google?
Yeah, so it's the wildest story, but I had a buddy. So my SC, Matt Bridge, was put in his notice. And
SC stands for?
Sales Consultants.
Like your technical counterpart?
100%.
Yeah.
And then my buddy Davey Tolman, who, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I hope you're doing well. I'm sure you are, because you and your wife were just killing it in life. And I need to reach out to you. But I think, so I was in the process of interviewing for an SDR manager spot at Oracle, got referred to Google, ended up going through the process and getting an offer. And I got an offer for the SDR management position. Shout out to Aaron again. He guided me, said, go to Google, put that on your resume. that's going to be a huge thing for you. So I was actually referred by my buddy Davey.
Power of referrals, man.
It's key. It's so important.
And so what's good, dude, is like when you go to a company like Oracle, not only does Google like value that Oracle employees, or you could be at a Dell or a Salesforce, that the people at those companies get sales training, and they're not gonna, like, there's a higher probability of success. But when you go to Oracle, your peers tend to go, and they can pull you with them, in a way. So, and I remember some Oracle peers who joined Google afterwards, but just a testament to the power of referrals to get in the door. And you got the Google name on your resume. Talk about marketability, and same for me. I have it on my LinkedIn.
I think it was as good as it gets.
I say ex Oracle and ex Google on my description, or what is it, the headline on LinkedIn, and it feels damn good, you know. But anyways, is there anything you would share about the interview process? Again, I asked you, was Oracle smooth? But what about Google? Like, it can be tricky. You have cognitive ability interviews. Walk us through what the interview process looked like.
I think that was the first time I was truly intimidated by an interview process, because one, you're already intimidated because it's Google, right? We're all brainwashed already to think like, you're here, so like, lucky you, right? That's the approach. So that you're in your
it's
head.
like, you're kind of like, it's easy to be like, I hope they'll take me, the great Google,
100%, rather
than like, hey, I'm the shit and let's go, like, they're lucky to have me, which technically that's the case, right? Let's go. But it's I was feeling the same way, man. I'm like, Google, take me.
Well, and at that time I was still like, I wasn't new, 4 years at Oracle, but still didn't have like very much intuition and intuitive relationship selling. And like, I knew the tech at Oracle, but I was never a tech guy. Like, you want me to talk infrastructure very heavy? I had my sales consultant, Matt Bridge, who ended up going to Google when he put in his 2 weeks notice. He ended up going to Google. He wouldn't tell me until I got there, because he knew I was interviewing. It was super cool, because I ended up seeing him there, which was, and he's like awesome. A lifelong friend. So, it's a very tech interview. And I didn't trust that I had the knowledge needed to be able to navigate that conversation. And it was intimidating, because like that, I at that time, I didn't know if I was passionate about selling infrastructure still. I didn't know, but I wanted the big G on my resume. And so, the night before, I prepared, and I read, and, I did well on the interview. And obviously got the job.
But I remember, though, actually, it's coming back to me. You told me there was a question you flat out didn't know.
Yeah. Oh,
and yes. Let's tell the story of how you handled it. Because this is a great, I'm glad I remember this, because you told me.
Dang, dude.
It's
You're
like this.
Freaking, how do you do that?
I'm a machine.
My God.
Yeah. So this is a key lesson in interviewing, and it's powerful for sales scenarios too. It's okay to not know, but how do you handle when you don't know?
I remember Kirsten asked me. Shout
out to Kirsten.
She ended up being my manager. She was the hiring manager. I failed her to an extent. We can get into that. And she asked me a question. I forgot what the question was, but it was infrastructure based. But it was super.
And it was technical.
Super technical.
Like, what does this do?
Yes.
Like, what is?
Like, how would you do X, Y, Z? Like,
what is serverless computing? Like, why would you use?
I think it was around Kubernetes, to be honest with you.
Oh, Kubernetes.
Because that was a big thing at the time.
Oh, that's Google's thing, is they invented Kubernetes, containerized app dev, build software 100%. Faster. Anyways.
Yeah. And I was coming from selling hardware at Oracle, so there was, and so I looked at her and I said, to be honest with you, Kirsten, I'm not too sure. I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't want to just make one up on the spot. So I'm not aware, but what I will do tonight is, when I get back, I'll definitely be sure that I'm educated on what that looks like, so I can be best prepared to handle that when I'm in a situation with a customer, to be able to do it. And that's on me for not knowing it at this time. And I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure it was my response. Dude, I know for a fact I was just authentic and honest. I just said, though, I don't know. So, and that's okay.
Here's the key, that what you just demonstrated there is a quality that Google looks for: intellectual humility.
Yeah.
And so, It would be the biggest red flag if you made something up, because they would think, oh, when James is in front of a customer, he's going to make stuff up and reflect poorly.
Yeah.
And the reality is, in sales, there are going to be times when we don't know. Even our customer engineers, technical, might not know, but we say, you know what, I don't want to do you a disservice and pretend like I have the answer. I don't, but I am committed to finding it for you as quickly as possible and leveraging our resources.
Yep.
And I will get back to you by this time. And so you demonstrated how you would show up professionally and with intellectual humility in front of the customer. So she saw that, whether it was exactly how you said it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You gave a good example, though, the way you approached it. And it was just real and genuine. And
Well,
you're like, I will look it up tonight, and what you said is I'll be ready for when it's a customer scenario.
Well, because, and I know I said that because for two reasons I know I said that. One, I wanted to make sure I knew for when I needed to know it. But two, I wanted her to know that I'm already seeing that I am in this role, and that's how I'm envisioning this conversation. Because, like, I don't know, like, there's the trick of, like, saying we in the interview. Like, that's a key. You should always say we.
Yes, I do that.
And
all
I
the
do it
time.
and what I do on purpose is I'll say we, and I'm like, forgive me, sorry, I'm not there yet. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Forgive me. You know, because then they're like, well, you know, he's ready to go. He's already thinking about, like, you know, he's super.
Dude,
you know, and it's a stupid mind
trust
trick,
me.
but it's so true.
No, this is like my bread and butter as well. So,
but yeah, I mean, and you know, look, in sales, not knowing is okay. And we talked about rapport earlier. That's how you build it. That's how you become the trusted advisor. If you walk them down the wrong path, they're smarter than you when it comes to the tech anyways, most times.
Yeah.
So don't lie to them, because they're going to catch you in it. And just say, I don't know. But what I do know is I'm going to get with Matt when we get back.
Yeah.
We're going to go to that spot that you told me to go for dinner tonight. And we're going to talk about this and figure that out. And then tomorrow we're going to have an answer for you. Does that work?
Yeah, we're going to go to that spot you told me about for dinner. There's the personal touch, the rapport.
You gotta touch
and then
it
you're
all.
going to follow up and say, hey, by the way, I had exactly what you said. Thanks for the recommendation. You're the
Boom.
best. We got to go sometime. Dude, and it's just so important to learn these soft skills,
Right.
man. How do you connect? How do you build trust? Because without connection and trust, no business is possible. I actually have said this. I said this to get a meeting with a $40 billion company. I was following up. I was like, we could have the greatest managed services and solutions in the world, but none of that matters if you don't like me as a person. So can I take you out to lunch and we can get to know each other? If at the end of it, you think I wasted your time or you don't like me, you can tell me to take a hike, and I will.
And what happened?
And I ended up getting the meeting, man.
Let's go.
And now now it's a $40 billion company. It's one that, you know,
company.
it's a grocery store here. And I've been working on it for over a year, and I've made inroads, and he's gotten me to some other people. But it started with my champion, him, to give me a shot.
You got to have your champion.
Yeah. So, dude, there was one other thought on the concept of when you don't know. I'm going to get back to you. Oh, yeah. Listening, bro. It's like being curious. So I'm going to get back to you, but before, I'll get back to you by tomorrow. I'm curious, why is that important to you?
100%.
It's like what we actually need to know is why it matters. What's the intention behind it? Okay, you need to know about this because it actually is going to impact your future architecture, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, even if we don't know an answer to a technical question, we can still understand, like, oh, why does that question matter?
Yep.
And ultimately, the why behind things is why customers actually buy.
Well, and then you asking the why to them is showing that you're
You
invested
care.
in their business and them, right?
Yeah, and then you just follow your curiosity. So listening and curiosity, these are things that everyone has innately within them, That's the beauty, So, okay, in terms of your time at Google, because I do want to hop to GrubHub, and I don't know, I've set a timer because we're good. It's interesting why you left Google to go to GrubHub. That's going to be a good lesson for the audience, and we'll talk about your success there, how you closed a $27 million deal. But any particular lessons that you want to hit on or aspects of your experience at Google Cloud once you were in the role?
Yeah, I think, we when we connected a little bit ago, we talked, or 3 weeks ago, I told you I was a shell of myself at Google, and you were like, "There's no way, I don't believe you," because I didn't see that. But the reality is, like, the high school dropout, the non-college guy, the older one with kids, in a room full of kids, right? Being 30.
It was a young crew.
That's what I'm saying, right? So, and then the Browns and the Stanfords and the, all those things ended up being super intimidating to me.
Imposter syndrome was something.
When it's already something you get most times in Google. They kind of,
I felt it too, man.
They kind of want you to have it.
I felt it. Sundar Pichai, their CEO, does say it's imposter syndrome is a good thing. But, dude, tell us about that experience and how you dealt with it.
Well, and I didn't, and that was the problem. I didn't. I don't know if you remember, and I know Andrew Colbrook remembers, and I'm sure a couple others do. I know Kirsten definitely remembers, but like I would get to work earlier than everybody. I'd get there at 7. I'd grab my breakfast, and I'd find there were rooms that were one individual room. It would kind of be like this, but it would be this way. And I'd sit.
I like those rooms, dude. And by the way, the fact that we had the amazing breakfast, lunch, all the free food. We had
fortunate.
Papa Shot video games, massage chairs.
Super
up in the
fortunate.
27th floor, looking out through glass at
My
the lake.
12-year-old,
dude,
he asks me all the time to go back to Google. All the time. He's been asking me for 5 years.
Dude, I'd bring a bunch of people, dude. Like if I met, or like a friend, I'd bring them.
It's so cool.
I was gonna say if I met a girl, I'd bring her over.
Yeah.
Like.
And so I would get there, I'd grab my breakfast, I'd charge her all this, and I'd sit there until 4. I'd wait till lunch was later, so that way I didn't run into anybody, and I'd go grab lunch by myself and then come back.
Because I was isolated.
I did isolate because I was so, I don't know why, and I think, I do now, but like I was just so intimidated by everybody being smarter than me, right? Everybody was so much smarter. And in reality, I had the experience and the ability, and I did fine, right? But at the end of the day, I could have done so much more, and I could have taken advantage of that situation so much more. And I think I created a situation where it was time to leave. When in reality, I don't believe I gave Google the opportunity that I should have. I look at that a lot, to be honest with you. It's like the only true regret I have in my career is I got hired by Google. They gave me a chance, and I took it, and I was successful. But I could have been so much more at Google if I had the opportunity to really get over it. And I wish I could go back and kind of redo that, but like I also know, dude, everything happens for a reason. So like, you know what I mean?
And
like,
you have this lesson to encourage others, and like, dude, the stuff you've done at GrubHub's nuts. But I will say you were successful,
right? Like
I saw you closing big deals. You're just saying though, you had more in the tank. You could have performed better. You could have connected more.
I could have connected more.
Yeah.
I could have taken them. If I can be your mentor, who else could I have been a mentor to? Right? Yeah. Who else could I have impacted?
You impacted Ryan, our SDR.
100%.
Shout out to Ryan. Right? We caught up recently.
Oh, nice.
I told him to reach out to you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. No, definitely connected with a lot of people, right? But I could have been so much more. And I would have liked to have been so much more, But at the end of the day, every step leads to that next step. So I'll take what happened.
Dude,
but it's interesting to look back on it.
The good thing, though, is you still have that paying, and that serves a purpose to now keep you vigilant to truly take advantage of the opportunity. Leave it, empty the gas tank and really connect. And you've taken that with you to GrubHub. Yeah. So let's talk about that in a second, but I will say, let's just share a story from our days together. So you were my first mentor at Google Cloud, and we went out to Seattle together to meet some customers.
Great trip.
We stayed in an amazing Airbnb. It was sick.
Beautiful.
I forget if we, I don't know if we went out or we must have gone out, but either way, we show up to meet this. I think it was the COO and the VP of IT, something like that. I show up, man, and I'm nervous. We're in suits, I'm pretty sure. And I start trying to small talk, but I ask like a really awkward question, and you like save the day, bro, by you ask something about the local food. And it's like, first off, you save the day. I was awkward. I was nervous. You smoothed it over, bro. And I think there was an insight, like isn't like something as simple as like understanding the local market and asking about food. Is that just like almost like a nice foolproof topic to start things with? Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just noticed that was smooth.
Well, you have to remember, like, the one thing we all share is food, right? Like the common love for food. We need it, right? So that's the easiest thing to go for when sparking a conversation, because we need it to live. Anything else you try to do you're throwing darts at a dartboard. Maybe you hit the topic, but there's a chance you don't land.
Yeah, because
right?
the key is you warmed it up nice. You need to. You're meeting an executive first time, but it would no. It was I forget if I was like.
It was funny though.
But I know the other fumble. We're gonna get to that. Okay. But the first thing I was just a little awkward.
Oh, like, yeah.
But it's just the key is when you're in person, especially in person, starting conversations off on the right foot's important. And there's just natural things. That's a pro tip. Like, oh, like, have you tried this local pizza spot? What's your thoughts? Like, even we didn't live in Seattle, but you familiarize yourself with what was around there.
Well, I think I think a lot of it has to do with the common sharing of food, but then also the fact that like I want to know a little bit about Seattle while I'm there too, right? And who else am I going to learn it from? The people that live there.
And they take pride in their community.
100%.
So it's like get people talking about things that they enjoy talking about that makes them feel good.
And I think we were in Olympia, or we were in not Olympia.
It wasn't Olympia, but it wasn't like downtown Seattle, but it was nearby. But either way, yeah. And so that was one thing. That was a good lesson. And then we get in there, and they start sharing some pains about their current Heroku infrastructure. Right? It's like a server. If it's it's Salesforce's like no code. I can't talk a long day
because you're already fumbling. You're thinking about the fumble.
Their no code platform as a service to run an application. It's like a black box. So, it runs. You don't have to manage, but. He was saying they're running into challenges. Their application's growing and scaling, and they're having brownouts. So outages where the application's going down, and they can't afford that for the business. That can lead to bad customer experience.
And they were a social media app.
They were a social media app, so they were having issues. And between us, it's like in my head, I'm thinking, oh, great, this is why customers moved from Heroku to Google Cloud. This is perfect. There's a pain that we can solve. Boom. But the way it came out was so awkward, and I'll never forget it. I said, hey, I just want to get back. I was really excited by those Heroku challenges you're having. I was excited about your Heroku challenges. How awkward. Like, yay, you have pain, so now I'm glad you have pain so that I can sell you. That's what I was saying. And he looked at me.
I looked at you
he looked at me and it's like, and then he like looked at you too and was like, is this guy for real?
You brought him
and
with
then
you?
And then exactly. And he's saying to you brought this guy with you. And so, but then it shifted. You saved the day and took over. And so anything else you want to add on that experience?
I mean, look.
And the lesson from it.
I mean, the lesson is when you're a young seller, you get happy ears no matter what the situation is. And especially when you're a passionate seller, which you are.
You get overexcited.
You're a passionate seller. But people misunderstand the passion.
So Kirsten, our manager, she called me, shout out to Kirsten, lightning in a bottle.
It's true.
Right? Jay Strasberg, one of our teammates, said, Chris, I'd like to do an fMRI scan on your brain to know what goes in there. Yeah. So I'm the passionate guy. But one, you got to manage that with executives. And two, it can lead to happy ears where you hear a sign of a pain you can solve and you get overzealous.
You want to jump in.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so anyways, how do you manage that? And like you kind of swooped in, man, and say, I don't know if you remember kind of how you handled it.
I don't remember how I handled it. I do remember handling the conversation. And we ended up continuing to have a great, do you remember how I handled it?
And then you kind of took over, which is a lesson. Sometimes this happens in sales where if as a seller, you're not connecting with the prospect or something goes sour, it's actually strategic and you have to put your ego aside to have another seller step in that's interfacing and has a better rapport. And that's kind of what happened. You ended up rolling with it. And a lesson too is you're going to make mistakes early on in your sales career.
100%.
But you got to learn from it. And my pride was hurt a little bit.
Oh man,
but
you were
also,
in your feelings that day.
Oh yeah, was I like all like
you were just definitely
reeling about it?
You just apologized a lot. It was definitely something we talked about all night. And I just had to tell you, like, look, one, we already have the other meeting booked.
Dude, yes. So, okay, and dude, it's so funny because now I have a mentee that's helped him get in a Snowflake. Now he's at Confluent, and he pissed off a customer by, like, double dialing them and, like, being too overzealous when they came inbound.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we're not interested anymore. And I actually come full circle. I'm advising him, like, hey, here's the lesson learned.
Yeah.
But also, dude, there's abundant opportunities. And don't caught up, is this even a big opportunity? So learning quickly in your sales career, you'll make mistakes, But don't get over apologetic and just beat yourself up and self-flagellate. Move on, because you can fail in sales and then succeed gloriously.
Well, yeah, and then I also think like if you continue to beat it down, you're missing the opportunity to learn.
Yeah. And you're going to just limit yourself.
Right.
You know, so dude, yeah, I
That was fun,
think
though.
what you did though is you played out, you made it light, made a joke of it, and then you brought a thoughtful perspective. You were asking him about, this is so funny. I remember, like, how are you segmenting your customers? And I think you found another opportunity, but then pulled it back. And then you took over and followed up, and
we closed that deal.
We closed the deal, so let's go, baby.
Hey, that's what matters.
And so let's talk about, though, I don't know how we're doing with time. This is conversation
What time
flowing
are we
and
supposed to
fun.
be done?
I have a timer set.
Okay.
But let's talk about what drew you to GrubHub, because I did a video on why I left Google, and people are curious, like, why would you leave Google? And you had good reasons, and there's a lesson for sellers on how to think about choosing the best opportunities for them. So what drew you to GrubHub?
Yeah, I think when we look at what we were talking about just now with like the common, like the sharing of passion for food was like an interesting thing. And then this wasn't selling to restaurants, which was a big thing for me. I didn't want to sell to restaurants. I just didn't want to be associated with selling to restaurants. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just didn't want, coming from Google, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to still be B2B. And so I went through the interview process and really just, I remember that role play, and I feel like that was the first time a light ever went on in my head where it was like, I like what I'm selling. I actually like this.
You believe in the product.
I like these conversations that are going to happen from this.
Tell us about let's just get like nerd out, like why are you passionate about it and what's the value?
Well, I mean, one, it's fun, right? Like, look, now I'm ready. Like now I want to, I can talk infrastructure and Kubernetes and all that and find
data
it
analytics
fun.
and AI.
All that. It'll never be as fun though as talk to me about your meal program at XYZ company and what's important for you in the meal program. You know, they're feeding their employees once a week and catering 250 people on Wednesday for lunch. I'm now helping them figure out how they're going to utilize our platform to feed their employees. But then I'm also going to solve like the back end expense side and all these other problems. But like those are secondary because they want to figure out how they can streamline their food their meal program and how we can play that part. And I'm talking to them about food.
And you love food. You found something you're passionate about.
My grandma was a head chef for a long, like 20 years. She was a Bon Appetit Chef of the Year multiple times. And
wow.
I've just always had this thing for food in general. Obviously, I was in the restaurant business. And it was just being able to combine two different passions. And I think for me, it was just like, man, what a fun problem to solve. We're going to figure out how to make your employees happy utilizing our platform by ordering food. That's it. Like, we're going to get into the details, and there's so much more we can do. And I'm shortening like what our corporate business is, right? But at the end of the day, like that's the crux of what we do. How fun to make people happy.
So you're happier than ever before because you're selling something you believe in, you enjoy the conversation. So you're making a lot of money. I know you said you had like a almost 500K a year, deep 400. Yeah, but like approaching, know that. It's amazing, man. And so, but you're having fun doing it, dude. So that's great. And so for the audience, if there's a specific area that you're passionate about, like you want to solve outcomes in healthcare, or you want to sell, you're interested in retail or sports technology, like there's an opportunity to find a specific industry niche and sell something you can get excited about, because that's going to sustain you, lead to sustained success.
I mean, if you can combine happiness with your role or career, like you're just going to be, it just leads to every other aspect, right? Like if I would have been happy at Google, like God, who knows, right? And I controlled my happiness looking back at it now, but like it's just cool to be able to talk about things you love, and then now you're just having fun conversations, so it doesn't even feel like you're selling anymore. Yeah.
So okay, the $27 million deal, right? Was that how big was it?
Over 5 years?
Yeah.
Would spend $27 million.
Okay. Was that one of the biggest deals at your company?
I think at that time, yeah. I
Yeah.
think maybe even in general.
So let's just like extract some lessons, take this where you may on like how you got that deal. Like how did you find it and what were some keys? And we've already hit on some keys of succeeding in sales, so I'm sure they were applied in this situation.
Inbound lead came in
Okay.
during COVID. At that time, everybody was shifting from on-site conferences and things like that to remote, virtual, right? Because nobody could go anywhere. And so we have a functionality within our platform that allows you to send what we call lines of credit out to your employees. So basically, if you have you log into your GrubHub account, you'll see $50 on your GrubHub account that you can use to spend on food, right? And so
and that was our timer, so but we're good. So we'll flow with it. Keep going.
yeah, the company was looking to figure out how they were going to feed their employees because they were already doing that on site. Everybody was remote. Ended up being line of credit. So that led from that fixing one use case of like feeding their remote employees now that they're not on site, but then also to their warehouse workers in Kentucky, to their annual employee event that they have every year, to Christmas bonuses and using like the line of credit there, to all these other different use cases that and it's a consumption-based business model, very similar to Google Cloud, right?
Yeah.
So as they spend, the consumption goes up, right? And so they ended up being a very large company, and they used us for everything for the first 2 years. And it was, it's just awesome. I mean, one of the greatest companies I could have ever worked for, too. It was cool people. Like, everything about it was just, it was the perfect deal.
Yeah, so maybe in a future conversation we'll go more into massive deals, but the lesson is like you found one key problem to solve.
But you got to find more.
But you found more and you expanded. I'm sure, didn't you talk to a cast of like different people in different business units?
Yep, 100%.
So how many key stakeholders were there overall in the deal?
5.
And you probably leveraged one contact to get an
I had
intro
one
to
main
another.
champion, and she was just amazing.
Okay, so see, these are just high-level lessons. We can't dig in fully today because we're going to wrap it up shortly, talking on leadership. But you had to sell a massive career-changing deal. You got to solve multiple problems across different lines of business, and you need a champion who will give you insider information, introduce you to other champions and leaders to solve different problems, and coach you to get it over the edge.
And champion that within it, right? Like, still continue to be a champion, to be part of those conversations as much as possible, to continue that traction.
Yes.
Right? But yeah, that's key. Being multi-threaded in any opportunity is going to be key. So having multiple people within an opportunity that you can touch and reach out to it's a necessity. You have to have at least 2 or 3 be associated with an opportunity so you can reach out to them.
Yes.
Because we've seen it so often, people leave to go to other jobs, or one is scared to make a decision or say no, and they ghost you, whatever it may be. Now you want to have somebody else that you can go to and reach out to. So being multi-threaded is, I think, one of the more key things that you can do within an opportunity, and that's just involving other people from other organizations or other departments or even other titles within that organization to be part of the conversation, so you have another person to reach out to.
So final question, and this could fill a whole podcast, but it'll be a teaser for next time. But you were called to leadership. You're a great leader. You were mentoring me, and I could just experience it. So could Ryan, our SDR. Like, you're a great leader. And it's no surprise that you've built SDR orgs at GrubHub. Your teams have hit their numbers every year. Your top performers stay with you. What called you to leadership, and what are some keys to being a good leader? And this is the final question. Because,
I think authenticity and consistency. So like being your authentic self every day. I think leaders and managers are told, like, we need to be this, we need to follow these processes and rules. And like, when there's things that are happening within a company that you don't like and your team aren't going to like or agree with, you just go with it. And like, there's no questions. We shouldn't talk about it. We shouldn't bring it up. We should just say, in reality, like, you want to give your employees a space to be able to have conversations about, like, hey, I don't like this. Why did we make this decision? And I think so giving your employees the opportunity to have those conversations with you is key, but then being consistent every day, being the same person so they know exactly who to expect, and showing a genuine interest in them as a human, along with being a seller. I think those three things combined are what can really separate a great leader from an okay to good leader, is being that person. They say a good bartender is like your therapist, your lawyer, and like your friend or something like that. Like a manager is the same way.
Yeah.
Like I've had multiple people where like we have to have a therapy session instead of like our regular one-on-one, because you need to get this out and I need to be the person to listen to you. And then we're going to focus on the other stuff after. And like there's a level of trust that just comes with somebody being able to be open and vulnerable in those moments. It's not everybody, right? And that's okay, but you are going to have some people that maybe do need that, and you need to be able to give it to them when they need it. And it just establishes a level of trust where like they want to go harder for you, and you're empowering them to be their authentic self every day. So they're going to be successful. You have to be honest and direct and transparent throughout the entire process, no matter what. And they're not going to like some of the things they hear. But if they know where it's coming from, it's a lot easier to hear the direct, honest answers that they don't like when they know where it's coming from. But if they have to question where it's coming from, it's harder for them to swallow.
So they're knocking on the door.
Yeah.
But final words of encouragement, brother, and then we'll tie a bow in this conversation.
I would just say, like, be your authentic self every day. And if you do that, and you're going to be great at anything you do. Don't ever question or compromise who you are. Find ways for your authentic self to be enough. And you're going to be great at selling. You're going to find a way. But you don't have to put yourself in a box. You can be in a circle, you can be in a triangle, you can be in whatever you need to be. But you don't have to be how they think you need to be or how you think you need to be. You need to be who you want to be and who you know you need to be.
Amen. Well, James, thanks so much for the time and generously sharing your insight and inspiration to the audience, to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.